Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the Directed IRA podcast, where we're there helping you build your retirement accounts to the maximum value with what you know best, what you know will get you to your greatest rate of return. My name is Mark Kohler, and I'm here with the amazing Matt Sorensen. And before we get started, I just got to announce, Matt Sorensen hosted, again, the amazing 6th annual 2-day summit. I mean, Matt, it was historic. I mean,
it's the best one we've ever done. We had our special beat reporter out showing us, not just talking about self-directed investments, but showing us actual real estate owned by retirement accounts, actual cows owned by health savings accounts. We even got online and looked at some trading accounts, real accounts that own this stuff. So we tried to keep it real for, because it was real.
Yeah, it was not recorded. We got an E rating, which is E for everyone. Just want to point that out. And but no, it was a lot of fun. And if some of you missed it for, what is it, $199, $299? What is it?
$199.
Oh man, see, I could have sold that for $299 right there. You blew it.
I know.
Blew it. Okay,
I care about the people too much,
Yeah, you care. You're a giver. Matt Sorensen's a giver. But $199, you get almost 12 hours of content on directed IRAs. And we did a pre-session just explaining the difference between different accounts, like all the types of accounts. I said difference twice in the same sentence. Anyway, the different types of accounts like IRAs, 401k, SEPs. We did backdoor Roths, backdoor 401ks. We went into backdoor everywhere. I mean, it was amazing. So everybody, please go check out the summit. You can get it at any of our websites and immediately start watching. There's a great workbook that comes with it. Am I missing anything, Matt?
No, yeah, you can watch it over and over. The recording's available for a year. Look for it at sdirasummit.com, sdirasummit.com. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter. You'll get updates on it from there, and on all of our articles, which you can do at any of our websites, directedira.com, mainstreetbusiness.com, kkslawyers.com, markjkohler.com, mattsorensen.com, all those great websites.
Yeah. And as we get into our topic, I've got to do something with my hair. I'm like the mad scientist in Back to the Future. So we'll do a quick clip here and, it's going to go like that and my hair is going to be fixed. But Matt Sorensen, when we come back, tell us about our topic today. It's going to be good.
All right. We are delighted to be with you today, talking about my favorite topic, self-directed retirement accounts. Every damn week, that's what we do.
Yes. And one of my new favorite topics, maybe not Matt Sorensen's, the ESA, the Educational Savings Account.
That's not a typo, ESA. That's
no.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to have to explain where this all originated from and all that here shortly, but don't go anywhere. This is a big deal. And I'm going to make a major argument that the ESA is far better than the 529. Far better.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very bold statement because Wall Street would say I'm crazy. And
yeah,
I tell you, Matt, I was mad. Like my wife's like, what are you so upset about? And I'm like, freaking, you can't find any decent ESA that'll, 529 plan that'll tell you what's really going on in their plan. Smoke and mirrors, baby. Ugh. So the ESA, everybody, you're going to love it. There's my.
Okay. All right. I like it. Well, this education savings account, it can be self-directed. Sometimes it's called a Coverdell IRA. But we're going to break it down, how you can use it, how you can get money into it, why it beats the 529. And you know what? I was talking to a financial advisor. This is maybe a couple years ago. And he said when he was trained as a financial advisor, when they were picking up new customers and they're out prospecting, they were told to focus on helping your kids pay for college and 529s before IRAs and 401ks for the person themselves, because there is more desire if you have a kid who's, in elementary school, junior high school, whatever they're at, that's hopefully going to go to college. There's more like desire for people to put money into those accounts than it is for their own retirement when they hit, 59 and a half. So I thought that was very interesting. It's probably backwards in our minds, but we still think the 529 and ESA is a great tool to help save for college, but maybe not at the expense of putting money into your own IRA or 401k.
Yeah, I just, and we'll just get over a couple of these policy points that Matt and I are a little opinionated about, and don't be offended. We know that some of you parents out there are like, my kids are on their own. They can figure it out. And then we've got other parents that are like hell bent on paying for an Ivy League college education for their kids before their own retirement, and everything in between. And I'm not saying one of those is right or wrong. Well, I am. I'm going to say.
I'm like, oh, you're not? Oh, which Mark Kohler showed up today? That's not the one I know.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. I'm going to say how it is. This is the Susie Orman in me. I'm going to say that there's nothing wrong with paying for your kids' education or not paying for your kids' education. I think that's very different opinions on families and how to approach that. However, to sacrifice your own future retirement to just pay for your kids' education, I think that's ludicrous. And we do see people that come in and go, I drained my 401k for my kids' college. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And I probably am a little brutal on them, but I want to encourage all of you that we're going to share some strategies with you today where you don't have to worry about doing that. If paying for your kids' college is that important to you, pay attention, because we've got things that do not require you sacrificing your 401k. So,
all right. Okay.
All right.
Love it.
Where should we start?
All right. Let's just talk about, why don't you go over, do you want to compare it to the 529 first? Or do you want to just lay out the ESA, the Coverdell?
Let's lay it out. Now, let's start with the name first. Now, I have an article out on this that just came out this past week. And for those of you that want to print it out and mark it up a little bit, there's a lot here. So I'm going to recommend that you look at that. It's in the show description, the link to that article. You can easily just Google ESA and Kohler. If you Google just ESA, there's going to be 19 ads from every Wall Street brokerage in the country trying to get your attention. Add the word Kohler, if I may encourage you to do so. But the article is really, I start out with the name because it is confusing. The current name in the IRS code that is the preferable and accurate term for this type of account is called the Coverdell ESA, or education savings account. It used to be called an educational IRA. It was called a Coverdell at one point. It was called a Coverdell IRA at one point, but now it is just Coverdell ESA. There's only one account. So don't think, oh, well, what about the educational IRA? Or what about the same thing. And the name Coverdell came from a Georgia senator who really championed this account back in 1997 when the Tax Reform Act of 1997 was passed. I forgot his first name, but Senator Coverdell from Georgia.
Senator. That's his first name.
So,
Senator.
Okay, so that's the name. That's the first thing. Okay, Matt, you want to talk about contributions? Why don't we talk about how to set it up? Let's just do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about getting money in. Now, there's a couple of different parties involved here when you're setting up the account, because you're setting it up, let's say, for your child. That's the most common, parents setting up for their child, or maybe a grandparent setting up for the child. Let's walk through this. The most common, parents setting up for child.
Yep. And
so when you're setting up
right now, let's say that 3 parties.
Okay.
Beneficiary.
All right. So you have the beneficiary. That's the kid, typically, or a grandkid. That's the person you're wanting to save for. They need to be under the age of 18 to establish the account for them. And that's the person who's going to use the money once they get to 18, and they're going to, I mean, they don't have to be 18, but once they go to college, and they're going to pay for their college expenses. Now there's a person called the responsible party. That is the one who's setting up the account, that has the investment decision-making authority. And we're going to get to some other things that happen here after the child reaches age 18. You want to make sure you're up to speed on, but that party is the one who is in charge, basically. That's the parent typically setting it up for the beneficiary, who's the child. So responsible individual is who you are as parent, typically setting up the account for your child, who's the beneficiary. Now, who's the third party, Mark?
The grantor, or the depositor. because the parent, there's an income limit, or that if you make too much money, you can't put money into your kid's account. Heaven forbid middle income or upper class middle America gets an opportunity to save for the kids' college, but hell no. So there's a way around this. This is a big loophole. This is loophole number one. I'm gonna freaking take this to the hoop and slam dunk it on why it's better than the 529. But this is a pretty cool provision because you can get around the income limit, which a lot of 529 advocates complain and go, oh, the ESA has an income limit. There's a freaking easy way around it. So the responsible individual opens the account, but doesn't put any money in if their income is too high. We let grandparents or even the kid themselves can put the money in, and they don't have to have earned income to do it. It's not like a Roth IRA. So when you pay your kids so they can open a Roth, that's great. And we want to do that in concert with the ESA. Matt can explain why here in a minute on that. But see, there's a lot of moving parts here. But the point I like that Matt points out is that a parent sets it up, says, hey, grandparents, we got this account set up for little Johnny or little Susie. You can put in up to $2,000, and that's all that can go in per kid. Even if they had 10 accounts, they can only put in $200 per account. It's maxed at $2,000. But then the donor is different than the responsible individual. Sorry, that was a roundabout way to get to it, but
yeah,
tricky.
Yeah, and so sometimes that's called the depositor. Who's putting the money in: donor, grantor, depositor. So you can get confused on this, but remember, there's, like Mark said, 3 parties. The beneficiary, that's typically the kid who's getting this money put aside for their future education. There's a responsible individual who's typically the parents setting it up and controlling these funds, deciding what it's going to invest into, and also deciding if they're going to send that money out to pay for that kid's college expenses.
Yeah,
and then you got the depositor who's the party who puts the actual money in. Okay, now let's talk about getting that money in. So you can put up to $2,000 a year into a Coverdell per child. So if you got 3 kids, you could be putting $6,000 in total, $2,000 in each one of their Coverdells. Now, as Mark said, there is an income limit where if you make a lot of money, you can't contribute to it. And I think that's about 190,000 joint, maybe 100,000 single, somewhere around there.
Let me give you right out of the Mark J. Kohler calendar. We'll open that up here. And right here on the Coverdell contribution phase out, it phases out between 95,000 and 110,000 if you're single, and married filing joint between 190,000 and 220,000. It's pretty high. Right. I mean, that captures a lot of Americans, but just FYI.
So if you're under that, if you're under 190 married joint, you're under 95 single, you can just throw the money in as the depositor yourself.
Yep.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Now, Matt, I want to go to something exciting because I think we got to get everybody sold on how kick butt these are.
Okay.
So before we talk about what happens if the kid doesn't use the money, what can they use it for, how long can you put in contribution? We're going to break all that down, but let's get to something I think that's pretty sexy. Okay. Here's the cool part.
All right.
And I'm going to throw it out there.
Yeah.
When you compare this to a 529, that's where I'm going with this. A 529 is a government plan sponsored by particular states. Ohio right now has the best 529 in every website I could find. But
is this where you're going with sexy? Okay. All right.
Now, obviously, what I think is sexy and what you think are sexy are probably two different things. That's fair enough.
Ooh, Ohio's got the best 529.
Yeah, woo, those Ohio Buckeye cheerleaders. They're
oh, okay.
Okay. No. Okay. So a 529 is ran by a state. Now, most of the states marry themselves to one mutual fund. Vanguard, I think, is the one of choice for Ohio. And I'm not kidding. Heaven forbid you could find a distinct summary of what their rate of return averages annualized per year after expenses. After 2 hours, I gave up. I mean, I would have probably had to order the 1.5-inch book prospectus and dissect it myself, because they're not going to tell you, because everything I could see was you're lucky to make 5%, maybe 8%. Now they're like, oh, since inception, we've been 19% or this or that. And we're compared the best, and they throw out all these other numbers, but not the real one of what is my average annual return on $1,000 after expenses every year on average. And they've got all these other little funny ways of looking at it that makes it look good, but you never get that true answer. Okay. So I'm just going to say right now, everybody out there will say, well, you're going to get lucky if you make 10% annually in a 529. And I think it's half that. Okay. Now, here's what's cool about the ESA. You can open up a self-directed ESA right now at Directed IRA, multiple other locations, but Directed IRA is only one of the few, if not only a couple in the country, where you can set up a crypto ESA. Now, what's cool about that, Matt, I did some math. If you would have taken $2,000 1 year ago on April 1st, 2020, and I put it in Ripple, I just tried Ethereum, I looked at Bitcoin, and Ripple was kind of in the middle ground. Doge was off with the chart, but right now, Doge is very hard to buy inside. We don't even have an exchange that would allow that. But I put in Ripple, $2,000 last year, April 1st. Today, as of today's date recording, it would have been worth, I want to get the exact number here so that you can get excited.
Now,
approximately,
Ripple is the company, the crypto is called XRP that Ripple has. It's called XRP.
Yep. And there's a bunch of coins out there. If some of you are anti-cryptocurrency, just chill out here for a minute. Every cryptocurrency except a few that died, 90% of them have increased in value exponentially over the last 10 years as people are figuring these things out. But anyway, I'm not giving you investment advice. I'm not telling you to throw all your money in crypto. I'm just saying as an example, because a lot of people say, well, what can you do with $2,000? I can't do anything with $2,000. Bull crap. One thing, again, if you would have bought Ripple last year on April 1st, 2020, today it would be worth $180,797, an approximate 9,039% return. Now, if you want to look at other types of accounts like maybe gold, silver, maybe some stocks like GameStop or even Lululemon or some traditional stocks, you can do all that in a $2,000 ESA, but you cannot do that in a 529. So why I get excited about this is the cost of college is off the freaking chart. And I want to try to make as much money as I can with that $2,000, and a 529 is a pathetic way to do it. There you go.
Right. Yeah. I think, well, the 529 is like, you're going to just go slow and steady. You'll never hit a home run. You're never going to score a lot of points on any investment. You can get more money in a 529 each year than $2,000. Granted, you could, put, tens of thousands in a 529, but you're basically going to get incremental growth. You're basically going to use the money you put in to come back out to cover education expenses. So there's some growth obviously there, but the Coverdell allows you to invest in whatever you want, whether it's crypto, like Mark mentioned, and sure, it's easy after the fact to say, well, yeah, if I invested here to there in, one of the most successful cryptos, I could have, had a huge gain. But, some of the Coverdells I've seen it with clients, we have a lot of clients that have real estate in the Coverdell for their kids. If you think about putting in, we're not just saying $2,000. I mean, if your kid's 10 years old, they got 8 more years, let's say, until that's 16 grand of contributions. And so I've seen clients get properties under option with a Coverdell, get huge gains back on it when they find the right deal where they know they can make a $50,000 hit or something with a low investment. And that gain goes back in their Coverdell. And then it's funny because I've seen some of these parents who do send their kids to Ivy League schools, or I've seen some of just the, regular state university too. Big checks going out of these ESAs to cover this. And so for those parents, I think they caught the vision of, I'm going to help my kid either way. I might as well be strategic about it and do it in a tax preferred way. Because here's the thing on the Coverdell, and I think we skipped this. The money that grows, there's no tax on it. So when I put money in, there's no deduction. I'm not getting a tax deduction when I put money in a Coverdell, nor do you get a tax deduction on a 529. But in the Coverdell, it's growing tax-free if you make some great investments, and it's coming out tax-free when covering the education expenses of your kids.
Yep, I love it. I just think back and I wonder if Rudy Rudiger would have taken that $1,000 that, he had saved up working at the steel mill before his buddy died in the steel mill. I mean, just think of what that $1,000 could have done for him.
What, is this a movie? I don't know. Rudy Ruda. What?
Yeah, dude, you're really embarrassing yourself. You don't know the movie Rudy?
Oh, Rudy, like Notre Dame?
Yes, Rudy. Steel mill. That's Rudy Rudiger, the real guy.
Oh,
he saved up $1,000 before he left town, and his dad said, "You're an idiot. You're a Rudiger. Nothing wrong with that, but don't go." He had $1,000. He could have put that in an ESA, which is an important point. Again, if you have too high of income, you can gift your kids money, and they can put the money in the ESA themselves. All right. All kidding aside, now let's see. We've talked about the main parties.
Yep.
Okay,
let's talk about the high income people though, that can't put the money in themselves.
All right. Okay. Now,
Right.
I already kind of alluded to this, so I'll summarize again. If you find yourself in that predicament where you're making too much, just open the freaking account and then do a GoFundMe. And to say, I don't know how a high income individual could pull off a GoFundMe for my kid's college, but no, anybody can fund it under that income level. So grandma, grandpa, I had a client just this spring, within the last 2 months, they opened the account and they had the grandma put the money in, and then they created an LLC of which there was Roth accounts as well, including the Coverdells, and they bought a piece of land that'll be developed into an RV park. And they got a piece of land that is just dry and dusty and ugly. And oh my gosh, this thing, it's perfect. It's going to make a ton of money. Yeah. I mean, Uncle Eddie would just pull right up and pay those RV park fees. But this is going to be, it's going to be a phenomenal investment. This guy knows exactly what he's doing. And a lot of times that's the trick. You can take this ESA money, and Matt said, option some property, tie up some property with a down payment that has a future value that no one else sees. And then couple that money with other Roth accounts or whatever in an LLC and really put this money to work. Now, on that note, you can't put in more than $2,000 per year up until the kid turns 18. So in the year they turn 18, make sure you put the money in before their birthday. It's not before the year they turn 18, it's before their birthday. But then you can keep investing it. So you can make these deposits up until age 18, or the grandma can, or the aunt or uncle, or the kid themselves after you open it, because you want to be the designated responsible individual. Yep. And then grow it. And they have till age 30. And Matt, what are the expenses they can use it on? There's all sorts of goodies.
Yeah, I mean, obviously tuition and fees, books, room and board even. So those are all qualifying expenses for the Coverdell. Now, there's actually certain private high school qualifying expenses too, if you're one of, you're in that scenario with it come out for that. But for the most part, it's used for the, obviously higher education, college, tuition, fees, books, room and board.
Yeah. And what's cool is the ESA can be used for private school elementary education or pre-college private education where the 529 cannot. So the ESA opens up doors.
I think the 529 can too now. I think that changed.
Oh, that did change under this last.
Yeah.
Under the new.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that was under the Trump's administration's little passage.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Now, if they don't, okay, but also, Matt, I see computers, laptops, books, supplies, tutoring, and even transportation to
Oh,
get
okay.
to to and from school. There was a case on that one, but that's a whole other story. But you want there's lots of options. Heck, if you're looking for ways to earn money for your ESA, you're in a good situation.
Right.
So
yeah, if tuition's not enough and you still need to burn some more out of there, life is good. You figured your crap out in life. Okay, well, what happens though, Mark, what happens if that kid doesn't go to college?
Okay, this has been the big research that I've been working on the last 2 weeks, working on this article. And that is the kid not using the money. So you've saved up, maybe you got lucky, you hit it hard, big on some option on real estate or crypto or some currency or whatever. And you've got $100,000 that you saved up for this kid.
And let me say this too. I mean, I don't want to think people think you only got to have the home runs, What if I just put $2,000 in for 10 years, $20,000, and I had a 5% return on that. I might have $30,000 in here,
Yeah, you might be able to pay for books.
I'm just saying
maybe,
that's a big amount of money, though. I mean, I have
Matt,
in college.
Matt's lucky. Many of you don't know his kids are geniuses that got scholarships and got all these cool things.
True.
I love my kids, but there's other kids out there that you're looking at $30,000 a semester in a lot of these top tier schools, and it's insane.
Yeah,
it's insane to the point you want to be Lori Loughlin and really get a deal. But okay. So anyway, I think too, we're going to come to the Roth IRA because I want you to do the Roth IRA in conjunction with the Coverdell, and we'll explain why in a moment. But here's what happens if they don't use the money. They have until age 30, and you, as the responsible individual, first, you need to make an election. When the kid's about ready to turn 18, you're like, I'm still in charge. You've got to because you don't want your kid to be in charge of their own money. They'll drain it and they don't care. So you want to make sure that you're the responsible individual after age 18 for the child. And that gives you the right to roll it over to any family member of the child. So it could be a grandchild. So say they have kids in their mid-20s, you can immediately change it to a kid under a grandchild, a child of your child, and they're under age 18, and you can start putting in $2,000 again per year.
Yeah.
You can move it to a brother or sister.
Younger sibling. It's under 18.
And I know this sounds weird, but you can even roll it over to a spouse. So let's say your kid doesn't want to go to college, but they get married and their spouse does. And it could be male or female, whatever. You can think of all sorts of hypotheticals. And they're saying, we're going to go on to medical school, or my wife is, or my husband is. And they're like, okay, I'm going to change the beneficiary to the spouse of the child to help pay for those higher education costs up until age 30. And then you can change it again. So, I mean, this thing just lives on and rolls over and rolls over.
It can even be cousins too, which could be nieces and nephews to you. So, they try to give a lot of flexibility to this, that if the kid didn't use it, let's try and keep it in the family and let those funds come out, no tax, because that's the point of the Coverdell, is to pay for somebody's freaking education.
Yeah, because Elle Woods, her dad had no idea she was going to go to law school.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to go. And she got into Harvard. And it was probably her admission video that just did the work. Did the deal. So now, if any of you have not seen the documentary of Elle Woods, you need to go see that. Legally Blonde. It's as good as Paper Chase in the 1970s. It's a good one. Okay, now. All right, trying to make sure all of you can do your additional research.
Yeah, good old Reese Witherspoon. That was a great character. That was a great character.
I object. I use legal jargon in everyday terms and situations. I object. It happens to me all the time, because if I get cat calls on the street, I'm like, I object. It's annoying.
Yeah.
So, okay, now Matt, tell us why we would do a Roth for the child at the same time we do the ESA.
All right. Yeah, this is not an either or. You could double up on this, kind of like the belt and suspenders, You know what I'm talking about.
Good
Yeah,
analogy. I know.
belt and suspenders. John, generally from a fashion standpoint, I'm against wearing a belt and suspenders. To me, it's either one or the other.
I'm
From a
against
fashion
suspenders.
standpoint, but if you really need to keep your pants up, you really want to make sure. Okay. All right. So the Roth IRA. Now, the cool thing about the Roth IRA is you can put $6,000 a year in for your kid. And we're going to talk about they have to have earned income. That's a distinction. Let me just say that actually. That $6,000 you're putting in the Roth IRA, the kid has to have earned income. In the Coverdell scenario, there's no earned income requirement. So you can put the money in whether you have earned income or not. Grandparents can, kid can, doesn't matter. They just got to be under the income limits, whoever puts the money in and is the depositor. In a Roth IRA, though, the kid owns the account. See, in the Coverdell, you're the responsible individual. And like Mark said, once they hit age 18, you can still control the account if you've opted in for that. Now, in our account forms, you can opt into that on Coverdell's with us. Make sure you're checking that box. It's in there to say, I want to be in control of this, even when my kid hits age 18. So you're controlling that. The kid doesn't go to college. Again, you can transfer it to one of your other younger kids or all the parties Mark and I talked about. The Roth IRA, on the other hand, is the kid's account when they hit 18 or 21 in some states, whatever the age of majority is in the states, because this is an account in their name. So, but the cool thing is I can put $6,000 a year in, and all the contributions you put in a Roth IRA come out tax-free. So even if I put $6,000 in a year, by the time my kid's ready for college, there's $50,000 in there. And let's say 30 of that's contributions, 20 of it is investment gains. You can pull out 30 to cover the education expenses. Crap, you could pull it out to do whatever the heck you want. But it's a great savings tool because if you don't use it for that, the kid can keep it and they can keep investing it. And maybe they pull it out later to start a business or buy a home or hopefully they do it for something smart like that. And so it's a great savings tool. In addition to the Coverdell, remember the Roth IRA. It's not one or the other.
I love it. Now, Matt gave you the protein shake version. I'm going to state it another way and then give you the steroid version. And you see all those guys at the gym. You're like, that guy or girl, they're drinking protein. They look good. Then you see that one, you're like, that's wrong. That's steroids. And you look weird. So, okay. But here's the protein version that Matt just said. Remember Matt's example earlier that, hey, throw $2,000 in the ESA a year. And he said 8 years. And so you might have $16,000 when the kids turn 18 and you're still investing in it. Now you throw the Coverdell in there. 6 times 8. Oh, I'm going to add 2 to that. So it's 8 times 8. Now I've got $64,000. All right. Now we're outside of the community college level. So I've got $64,000 I can play with. And that's great. Now I want to add this before we go to steroids here is with a 529, you have no choice at all. You have to put it in whatever the state of Ohio chose for you at Vanguard. That's it. There's one freaking mutual fund. What's cool, if you don't want to buy crypto, fine. If you don't want to do real estate, fine. We have an investment account option at Directed IRA where you can just buy ETFs. You can say, I'm going to buy an ETF that has lower fees, maybe a no-load mutual fund. I get to choose the mutual fund. I want to do biotech. I want to do environmental or energy or whatever. And you get to choose, which is already better than a 529. And now you're getting maybe a snowball effect on not just the 2, not just the 6, but the 8. So you're getting investment choices in the stock market and you're doubling down. Okay. Now here's the steroids. IRA LLC. I got a pen. I got to drop it something. Just dropped my cell phone. Oh, damn. I broke the screen. Didn't think that through. Okay, now, but yeah. Well, Apple came out with some new announcements this week, so maybe I'll go get a new phone. Okay, but here's the thing, Matt. Mm-hmm. I could form an LLC with my 2 kids' Coverdells and my 2 kids' Roths. Ooh, now I got an LLC capitalized with $16,000 on day 1, And next year I can do pro rata contributions again. I can do 16. I can do 16, 16. Now I've got an LLC where I can really do some damage. I mean, do some good things.
Yeah. I love it. Very true. Yeah. I mean, and for those of you with multiple kids, you can add them into the same LLC like that. And, or even just you got one kid, you got the Roth and Coverdell going. I like that. It's maybe easier once you get a few years of contributions in to find the right real estate investment. And in the meantime, you could be, like Mark said, just doing stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. I mean, directed, you can do that. You can, if you want. And we have clients that are in between self-directed investments all the time that want to just buy an index fund, or they want to buy Apple or whatever, Tesla or whatever stocks of interest to them. GameStop, Mark likes to always throw that out there. I don't know anyone there's very few people who made money on that, but you could have been one of the lucky that actually made money on GameStop.
All of our interns that came in every day. I made another 1,000. We're like, what the hell are you buying? GameStop. Yeah. What's that? But it was the big talk in the.
Yeah. So you could buy, I'm just saying you could buy whatever you want. So, but now that's, and you could, there's, like Mark said, the 529 is your other option. And you have no choice. You're in whatever the state fund is. And so that's the big distinction on the Coverdell. Okay. So,
Matt, can I ask you, I want to digress and ask a quick question. We've never done a show on this, and so we ought to do it. But where's the line on a collectible? Let's say you take the 16 grand and you go buy a Porsche 911, one of those 1980 versions that are really skyrocketing in value right now. Is a vehicle a collectible? And let's say you're not gonna tinker with it yourself. Maybe you drop it off at a shop and they put in a new stereo, they detail it, and you just sit on it. Where's the line on collectibles? I don't know the answer. I wanted to ask you today.
I think that's a collectible. I wouldn't touch it. I mean, I love Porsche 911s. That's my favorite car. So, but I think buying that late model of a car the value of it is collectible. I mean, they have collectible value. That's part of the point of it. Like no one buys a 1980 Geo Metro, or, did they have those back then? Maybe that was the 90s. No one's buying a 1980 whatever Chevy Cavalier, right?
Well, is it a rehab? When does it become a rehab? Like, say I buy a 2000 F-150 and fix it up and sell it. Okay, fine. That's not a collectible. Is it the age? Is it? Now, I guess if you held it, that'd probably be it. Right? If I bought the Porsche 911 and fixed it up and sold it, I didn't buy it to collect it. Maybe that's part of it. You didn't know I was going to go.
I don't know. Yeah. Thanks for asking a question. I don't know. But I would be shocked if you could buy a 1980. I mean, that is 40 years ago. So I'd be shocked if you could buy that and sell it for profit and it not be deemed.
Seems like yesterday.
Seems
like yesterday. Oh. Yeah. We should do a show on collectibles, huh?
We could. I mean, I don't know. I get people, we had a client asking about buying a Michael Jordan rookie card, and clients asking about NFTs recently and stuff, those are all gray areas. And these are areas the IRS is not commenting on. They're like, of all the crap they got to deal with right now, they are not going to give you guidance on this. So, and I'm of the opinion that all those things I mentioned are collectibles. Some NFTs maybe not, but most of them, like all the digital art NFTs, I think those are collectible items. They're art essentially.
Explain what an NFT is.
Non-fungible token. It's basically in the digital art world, we saw the Beeple guy that sold the digital art NFT for $60 million. So like that's art. So would fall into a definition of collectible. So, but keep in mind, for those that know self-directed assets, you probably do if you're listening to this podcast, is real estate, crypto, private companies, private funds. I mean, these are all the common self-directed assets people are investing into. Private lending, those are certain things your retirement account can do. Collectibles does have a restriction, but there is caveats for that for gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. that has certain fineness requirements or certain approved coins.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that the IRS has said, no, gold is not a collectible. So
I've always wanted palladium, so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Now I will say this. You know what? Matt's gonna. You know, everybody, you got to know. Matt's gonna scold me after. He's like, "We're talking about ESAs. Why are you bringing up collectibles?" But here's the thing that's exciting about this show, everybody. You get to be creative. That's what's cool about self-directing. If you think of something and you're like, maybe I could buy that, and I know it'll grow in value, would that be a collectible? Could I do that in my kid's ESA? We welcome those questions. We would love that question. Schedule a half hour with one of our tax attorneys and say, dig in on this. I think I got a great opportunity here. I had a client with an ESA. Ooh, here's an example. I had a client with a Coverdell. This was about 8 years ago. Created an LLC. You'll remember this one because it was kind of a mess later. And I'll tell you why it was a mess later. But we set up a Coverdell, created an LLC, and they lived in Hollywood, and they were stuntmen, like the husband and wife. That was their career. They loved it. They met each other on the set. They'd travel around and be stuntmen on different movies. And they were a good combo because if they needed a female or a male, they'd get a twofer. You know, they'd show up and do their thing. Well, they figured out real quick that a lot of these production companies, they never owned anything. They would rent everything, all the lights, the sets, the gaffing equipment, all the stuff would show up in a truck. And same for stunt gear. Like say you're going to blow something up or you're going to put someone on fire. So they built a truck with all the, and seriously, I was so interested in this at the time. And like when a production company says, we need, you know, it's Mission Impossible 9 and we're going to need X stunts or X gear, they will put in the budget, we're going to need this equipment to do it. I remember them demonstrating how that knife came down on Tom Cruise's eye in that one where it almost touched his eye. And there was a documentary on how they did that stunt, and it was a real knife and really his eye. And they had built this situation where they could come down full force and the knife would stop at the exact spot every time. And Tom Cruise said, I'll do it. Because he's known for doing his own stunts. And he sat there and his eye was that close in the movie. That was his real eye. And that knife came down. Anyway, so they built a trailer of equipment and would rent it to studios. They did that with their kids' Coverdell. They were making like 40, 50% because the studios, they paid millions for all these freaking movies. And so they had bought that equipment and were renting it and making great money in their Coverdell LLC until one day, and Matt, remember this? You may not remember. There's a little 4-letter word that came into play. UBIT.
Oh, yeah. UBIT.
Remember that? And you said, Mark, they've got UBIT. And so we had to convert the LLC to a C Corp, which was cool. And so they ended up having to pay a 20% or so tax rate on the income. But what I'm saying is, everybody, and this is what I think is exciting about the show, is if you know a way to make money, there's your ESA, baby.
Yeah.
There's a way to.
Yeah. There you go. Renting stuntman equipment. Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Man. All right. Yeah. People do some cool stuff. Love that.
I'd like to be a stuntman. I think it'd be cool. I want to be a stunt double. Like
a stunt double. What's the difference between a stunt double and a stunt man?
I don't know. Just sounded good.
All right. A stunt double. I think that is the same thing. I'm guessing it's the same thing.
Yeah, I think you go in and double for the. See, I bet you the difference is you look like the actor.
Yeah, you got. There's definitely I've seen those. A lot of the big actors all kind of have like their typical stuntman that kind of does look like them.
Yeah.
So
I've been asked to be a stunt double for the love scenes because I have that look.
Yeah, I have that look. And that skill too. That's
yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna get a guy that can ride motorcycles over, flaming cars, you got there's always a guy for the love scene. Okay. Well, all right. So let me just kind of wrap this up and conclude. Remember the Coverdell Education Savings Account, sometimes called the Coverdell IRA, Coverdell ESA. You can put $2,000 a year in it per kid. All right. And make sure you're watching out for the income limits, about 100,000 single, 200,000 married. But remember, there's easy workarounds to get the money in. We at Directed IRA have a depositor form. So we're not looking at who owns it. We just want you to say, who's the depositor? I mean, you're going to indicate who the responsible individual is and who the beneficiary is. But in terms of the contribution qualifying, it goes on who's depositing the money in. And actually, don't businesses have no income limit? So businesses can contribute to Coverdell's too.
Yeah. And trusts, irrevocable trusts and things. And I want to make a challenge to everybody. I know part of the show is making it interesting and fun. And I appreciate everybody's patience with me today. I've been the color commentary apparently. But I want to just make a challenge to everybody. May 17th. We are just 2 to 3 weeks away from the deadline for 2020. You can make a contribution up until April 15th for the prior year. Oh, but we got COVID year. So we now have until May 17th. Open a Coverdell. Throw $2,000 in. What's it going to hurt? Get it in there. You can choose the, what's the option, Matt, where they can buy, I forgot the term, to buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs.
Oh, the brokerage option. Yeah, it's $80 option to add, and then it's $35 per trade. So just keep that in mind. But then when you're done with that and you're ready to self-direct, you're easy. You move right back over to self-directing.
Yeah, you could do the crypto Coverdell. You could do the brokerage option Coverdell. Take the $2,000. Say, I'm going to put 1,000 in. See, we are not registered investment advisors. We are not giving investment advice. These are examples. You can say, I'll put 1,000 in Apple and 1,000 in Tesla, and just let it sit. See where it goes. Bitcoin, there's a lot of predictions. Bitcoin could be up to $400,000 by the end of next year. Who knows? But it's down this week. So you take $1,000 or $2,000 and you buy Bitcoin. I don't care. I'm not telling anybody to buy anything specific, but get the 2,000 in, and you can put in the 2,000 for this year at the same time. Ooh, so now you got $4,000 per kid. Then you can say, holy crap, I got 3 at $4,000 a piece. I got 12,000 to play with. Maybe I'll open an LLC and start a crypto mine, or I'll go buy cows, or I'll go buy a F-150 and get it detailed and resell it, or I'll get, who knows? You can do all sorts of things as you start thinking outside of the box. And that's why I was trying to be a little nutty today and funny, is just to try to get people going, oh, yeah, I can think like that.
All right. And like we said, too, don't forget about the Roth IRA. Roth IRA can be for kids, too. The one caveat there, make sure they have earned income. If you got a family business, it's already an awesome tax strategy to pay your kids anyways. And what better way to pay them than to put it in their Roth IRA? Which
May
can come
17th
out
too.
Yeah, you can double 17th. That up too.
Yep.
There you go. $6,000 for 2020, $6,000 for 2021, $12,000.
Yeah. And let me give one last tip, and then we'll let Matt take us out. I had a client 2 weeks ago that said, yeah, I didn't get around to paying my kid. I have a small business. I love what you guys teach, but I never actually paid them. And if you don't have a paper trail, you can't say you paid your kid. We want, this has got to be honest. And the kid has to help with the business. And the guy said, yeah, my daughter helped with the business. She's 16 years old. I just never went through the process of paying her. I said, does she have another job? He goes, no, she just babysat all year. I go, whoa. How much did she make every month babysitting? Oh, she'd make a couple $100 a month. That's $2,400. She has earned income. He's like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And I go, dude, open up a Roth, drop in $2,400 for last year. Oh my gosh, right? So don't think your kid has to have a W-2 or has to have a 1099 or has to have this payment from you. Get out there and just think creatively. Where did they earn their money this year? So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Like I said, Mark's going to have his article out, so be on the lookout for that. You can sign up for our newsletter if you want to get notified and see the article in your email inbox. Just the lazy, easy way. Just make sure you're signed up for our newsletter, which you can do at directedira.com/podcast. And we will make sure you're getting those updates, of course. If you are, I don't know, that's going to also be on your blog, Mark. You can also go to markjclora.com, I'm sure.
Yeah, it'll feed through to KKOS. Yep, it'll feed through the law firm site.
Okay.
And
cool. We'll add it over onto directed IRA as well, because we'll put it right on the Coverdell page.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody. Matt, you're awesome. So smart.
All right.
Thanks for putting up with me and my antics.
Yeah. I mean, I was some of those didn't hit for me. Rudy. I mean, I didn't know Rudy's last name. I just know Rudy, you know. But the Elle Woods one, that one, I needed that one today. So since I have daughters, I've watched that show many times. But great flick. Okay, thanks everybody. We will see you back next week. And I forgot to say, dang it, Self-Directed IRA Summit. If you missed it, don't worry. Recording's going to be up in the next few days. You'll be able to get it at sdirasummit.com, sdirasummit.com. It was an awesome 2 days of jam-packed information on how to self-direct and take control of your retirement. Well worth the time. The money's easy. It's the time you got to put into to watching it. I felt like we delivered. So you go be the judge. If you don't feel that way, I'll send you your money back.